My friend Tom is such a crazy sock knitter that we call him the Sockinator. He has a wonderful loom knitting group on Facebook called Socks a la Loom, in which he is leading a knit along. To make sure that we have enough support materials for new sock knitters, I'm adding to my Sockumentaries list. All of the Sockumentaries will be useful to you, but the ones that begin with this intro are specifically designed to help with Tom's knit along.
To remind you that we have no problem telling which side finishes a row because there's our yarn tail. So when I follow that up, and I know I started on this peg, I'm ready to start my heel. Now, if you remember, I did my heel on these first 16 pegs, and because I didn't really start at center, this really should have been peg number 1. But I started on this peg because I could show you that I was hanging my loop more easily. Doesn't matter. We'll work over to the 16th. That's half of the pegs. So my toe is going to be just like the heel. Now, the reason that I like to work on the same exact pegs for the toe rather than the other 16, which would work, is that if I work on the same pegs, the closure to the toe will be on top of the foot, and that is less likely to be irritating or cause blisters if it's imperfect in any way. Of course, we don't make imperfect socks around here, but if it was imperfect in any way, it would cause less discomfort. So we're going to knit all the way around 16 for the very first row, just as we did on the heel. Using the same technique I've been using all along, a sort of automatic U-stitch, wherein I have my yarn stretched in front of the pegs, but by lifting and pulling, I'm creating a pull of the yarn around the peg, that U shape, so I get a consistently sized stitch of the tautness that I prefer for socks. Now again, when I get to peg number 16, I will knit it and wrap peg number 17 to prevent a hole, just as we did for the heel. And back we come. I am not going to show you knitting every stitch of this toe because it works out exactly the same as the heel. So what we'll do is knit for a little bit together, then you finish your toe to the point that you have short rowed in to however few pegs you wish to use for your design, and then back out to half of the pegs on the loom. And at that point, the toe becomes different from the heel because we've got to somehow get it off and join it. All right, I've knitted to peg 15 this time. Well, peg 15 if one was this peg. It's actually peg 2 if you mean where did I start. So I'm going to wrap and start back, short rowing in. I short rowed all the way down to 4 stitches to get a very pronounced heel, and I'm going to do that for the toe as well. Here's a little pointer. You may not want the toe and heel to be totally, utterly identical. I have rather sharply defined heels, so I knit into pretty narrow, and I have rather blunt toes. So for me, making them a perfect match is often a good choice. But many people have much pointier toes than I, and yet wider heels, and those people might not short row in quite as far on the heel, but prefer to short row in farther on the toe. That's okay. We're not exactly alike, and the pleasure of making our own socks is partly that we can make them exactly the way we want them. I'm ready to wrap this one and knit back, and I will see you when I'm ready to finish the toe, and you are too.